E hizo Dios las fieras según sus especies, los ganados según sus especies, y los reptiles según sus especies. Y vio Dios que era bueno. Dijo Dios, hagamos al hombre a nuestra imagen y semejanza, que domine los peces del mar, las aves del cielo, los ganados y los reptiles de la tierra. Y creó Dios al hombre a su imagen. A imagen de Dios lo creó, varón y mujer los creó. Dios los bendijo, y les dijo Dios, sed fecundos y multiplicaos, llenad la tierra y sometedla, dominad los peces del mar, las aves del cielo, y todos los animales que se mueven sobre la tierra. Y dijo Dios, mirad, os entrego todas las hierbas que engendran semilla sobre la superficie de la tierra, y todos los árboles frutales que engendran semilla, os servirán de alimento. Y la hierba verde servirá de alimento a todas las fieras de la tierra, a todas las aves del cielo, a todos los reptiles de la tierra, y a todo ser que respira. Y así fue. Vio Dios todo lo que había hecho, y era muy bueno. Pasó una tarde, pasó una mañana, el día sexto. Así quedaron concluidos el cielo, la tierra y todo el universo. Y habiendo concluido el día séptimo la obra que había hecho, descansó el día séptimo de toda la obra que había hecho.
The Lord God said, "It's not good for the man to be alone. I will make a suitable partner for him." Now, that's saying an awful lot. In basic biblical anthropology, the fundamental unit is not the individual. You'll find that in some of the founders of modern political philosophy. Look at Thomas Hobbes, look at John Locke, where the individual and his rights and prerogatives and so on is the building block of society. Not true in the Bible, not true in Catholic social teaching, in which the fundamental building block of society is not the individual, but the family. The Lord God said it's not good for the man to be alone. The Bible is not an individualistic system. It certainly respects and acknowledges the rights and freedom of the individual. Of course it does. But the building block of our social theory, if you want, is not the individual, but the family. We are built for togetherness. We're built for another. There's just something inadequate if we are alone. So, the Lord God formed out of the ground various wild animals and various birds of the air, and he brought them to the man to see what he would call them. There's so much packed into the poetry of those lines. Notice, please, the human being was also drawn from the dust of the earth. We are cousins, close relatives of all the other animals. We human beings are indeed made from the earth. We stand against any system that would say, the real me is the soul and the body's just kind of this appendage, or the body's a prison. You'll find that in Plato. Or the body is something I can manipulate arbitrarily. You find that in modern wokeism and ancient Gnosticism. Bible is very clear. Like the other animals, we are formed from the dust of the earth. But here's the difference. We also had, in the language of Genesis, breathed into us by God the Spirit. Now don't think of that simply as like the air coming in and out of the lungs. The Spirit here, the ruach in the Hebrew, the pneuma in Greek, spiritus in Latin, it means breath, but that's a symbol for the higher spiritual and intellectual powers that we have. Think now of mind and will and freedom and creativity. We're of the earth, yes, but we're also of the Spirit. We participate in the very mind of God. And this is why, listen now, this is why as the animals come before Adam, he names them. See, participating in God's own mind, Adam, the human being, can now recognize the intelligibility in things around him. So Adam naming the animals is showing his godlike capacity. So even this being, yes, from the earth, this embodied reality, but is also a spiritual reality. No, the Bible's very clear. The coming together of the two is what makes up the human being. Notice, please, he catalogs, he names the animals according to their objective intelligibility. He recognizes, it was Joseph Ratzinger who taught me this little trick. To recognize is to think again what's already been thought. Adam naming the animals is thinking again what has already been thought into them by God. Now, in doing this, the church fathers saw this. In doing this, Adam becomes the prototype of all scientists, of all philosophers. Isn't it beautiful? This animal from the earth, yes, like the other animals, but yet has this godlike capacity to participate in the very mind of God. You can really only be friends with someone who can be a second self to you. That's why you can't really be friends with an inferior in Aristotle. Well, it's really more profoundly expressed here that the proper partner for the man, so this building block of society, the family, the proper partner for man has to be his co-equal, and that's the role of the woman. And then here's how this passage closes. That's why a man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife, and the two of them become one flesh. I don't know anywhere, everybody, in the literature of the world where the marriage act and marriage itself is more beautifully expressed than there. The two of them, separate, yes indeed, but complementary to one another, each one recognizing the other as a co-equal but yet different partner, and the two become one flesh. Now that does mean indeed the body, and we are thinking here of the sexual act. But see, flesh in the Hebrew has that sense really of the totality of the self. The two become one. Marriage as the fullest expression of the friendship that forms the foundation of our civil society. All of that and more is packed into this little passage. That's why John Paul II can generate his whole theology of the body from these lines of Genesis. Now, here's what's interesting. As if that's not enough, we turn to the Gospel of Mark, and they're interrogating Jesus, trying to trip him up, asking about marriage and divorce, and can a man divorce his wife, and so on. Jesus told them, citing this very passage we've been considering, from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Now Jesus goes on. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. And therefore, what God has joined together, no human being must separate. Now look what's added here. So there's the transcendent third. Aristotle said a friendship will last, a marriage will last, only in the measure that the two partners fall in love not just with each other, but together fall in love with a transcendent third, with some value, some good that transcends them. It might be that, there's two soldiers who love their country together, two philosophers who love the truth together. Or here, two people, husband and wife, love each other, yes indeed, but primarily together they love God. It's God who's brought them together for his purposes. In the measure that they surrender together to God, their marriage is confirmed.